And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins, and I actually have a guest tonight. He's joining us via the phone. One of our well known audience members that chimes in all the time, Dale Osborne, is joining us tonight. And you're on the road, is that right?
I am. Hopefully, you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. Hopefully, the audience can as well.
So I am currently, yes, I'm currently eastbound on Interstate 90, going over the top of Bozeman Pass, which is between Bozeman, Montana, Livingston, Montana. And to my right, I have a BNSF grain train. It's got three power in front, ascending up the pass. If I were to roll my window down, you could probably hear the power huffing and puffing as they're coming up the pass. This pass is not a continental divide pass, but it's about 6,000 feet. So I'm also in the middle of the second season in Montana, which is construction season. We're 35-ish miles an hour in one lane while they're working on I-90 up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. You're on the interstate that I used to travel on in Massachusetts, the I 90, going right across, heading east to west or west to east, depending on what direction you're going. But I'm so happy that you're on the show this evening. So thank you so much for coming on. So we've got a really cool show. We're going to talk about some of my favorite scanners, and Dale is going to share his own as well. So he is on the phone. So if he does lose connection, he'll give us a call back. Hopefully the connection will stay. So let's start off the program. We are broadcasting tonight live on YouTube and the Scanner Guys Facebook page as well. So we've got some good stuff here. So Dale, my first scanner, and I believe this is the model, is a Radio Shack Pro 58 scanner. It was a 10-channel scanner, which was crazy for its time. That was my first radio. Now, scanners have a ridiculous amount of memory. They have,
The current ones versus the old ones, they definitely do.
yeah, I mean, you think of, when I got the 996 T, I had 25,000 memory channels, essentially, either talk groups or channels. It's just crazy. I had my first scanner was just 10 channels. I'm not as old to remember the days of crystals, but, I remember when I was working at Scanner Master, a lot of the customers were telling me, back in the day when they would have to buy crystals for each one of the channels that they wanted to program in. So this Radio Shack Pro 58 was actually manufactured by GRE, and it was a scanner that came out in the early 90s. I don't own this scanner anymore. I wish I did. It was hard trying to find a photograph of the scanner, so I was able to snag one from Radio Reference. Thankfully, they had it on the website there. So, of course, we got Dale on the phone. He's joining us tonight for the Scanner Guys Live. The next one, Dale, have you owned one of these? This is the Uniden Bearcat BC895 XLT. It was a large radio. It basically replaced the, I believe it was the 900 series or 9000. Do you remember this radio?
Um, I, um, I kind of remembered. I believe that I had one for a while that a friend gifted to me. It seemed to me it was a monstrous box that you had, and it was, I want to say it was one of the very early trunk trackers that it would do some trunk tracking, if I remember right, and do 800 meg.
Yes. So this radio came out in 1997, and it was the pioneer in trunk tracking for analog 800 megahertz. It had 300 channels, so I went from a 10-channel scanner to 300 channels. So it was like, wow, what am I going to do here? And of course, I was able to fill the excuse me. I was able to fill the radio. It had 10 banks. The thing with this radio, it could only do trunking or conventional. It couldn't do both at the same time. So what I ended up doing is I ended up buying a second one, and I had these radios stacked. So I had, on the top was the trunking for the Mass State Police because they were on an analog trunk system, and then I had all my analog conventional stuff in the other radio. Of course, this didn't have alpha tagging, but it did have PL tone, which was something new that I didn't have with that Radio Shack radio. It was really a cool radio. I would every so often, basically set it back to factory default and then reprogram it again. And that was back in the day where you didn't have software to program it, so I knew all the frequencies on the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, nowadays, with scanners, it's just like our cell phones. We don't dial anybody's number, it's stored in there, and I can't remember people's phone numbers. I'm lucky I can remember mine. But this one here, was a classic.
And I don't have one anymore. I had it for a very short amount of time, and it was mixed in with I think the same time I had that scanner for a little bit. I had a 760. I think I had a BC760 XLT at the same time, and I may have still had a BC250 that I had for a long time, but that one I didn't have very long.
Yeah, I mean, I think at one point I ended up having four of them. I had, a setup in my bedroom, and this is when I was a kid, or basically almost a young adult. I had the two radios set up, where I would be able to trunk on one and conventional on the other. I mean, I loved it. I mean, it was an awesome radio. They had a big, keypad and everything. Super cool. I wish I still had it, but unfortunately I don't have it anymore. The next radio, let's take a look at the next one, and many people had this radio. It was the Uniden Bearcat BC780 XLT. I remember people waiting, for this to come out, and this brought in a lot of stuff into the radio. Basically, this was able to do conventional and trunking, and it had alpha tagging, which I loved. And then this radio had 500 channels. So, I went from a scanner that had 10 channels to 300, and then I went up to 500 channels. And I had a couple of these. I think I had about two of them. And one was in my vehicle for a long time, and then the other one was in the house. And this one was certainly a workhorse. It has, scanner programming finally via PC. But yeah, I mean, it certainly was a really cool radio.
You still have one sitting behind you on your shelf, don't you? Isn't that what that's sitting back there?
Yes, I actually do still have one sitting behind me on the shelf, so I was able to hold on to that one. One of our viewers mentioned that you're not related to Ozzy Osbourne, right?
Well, I'm sure if you go out to the 700th cousin once removed, that I probably am, but it would be a lot way out there. But I did refer to him as Uncle Ozzy. Anybody that ever asked me, I always referred to him as Uncle Ozzy. So I've never met him. So the name is spelled a little bit different, but there's about a half a dozen different versions of my last name.
Yeah, so somebody mentioned in our audience about Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, he passed away yesterday. Brandon's asking. Go ahead.
And we do know it because we made fun of it before that my wife's first name is Kelly, so I'm married to a Kelly Osbourne.
Yeah, so funny. Brandon's asking, could you please explain what trunking is? Do you want to explain your version of it? I mean, our audience has heard so many times my version of it. What would your version be for someone that's coming into the hobby? What is trunking?
Well, the way I describe it to people to try to understand it, and the first thing I tell them is, trunking is not a radio term. Trunking is a telephonic term that was used by the telephone companies years ago when you wouldn't have 5,000 different long distance phone lines between wherever you were and where your grandma lived. And when you wanted to call your grandma, they only had a specific amount of long distance lines, and there's a bunch of math involved. And I always tell people I wasn't here to do math, but they figured that only X amount of people at X amount of time are going to use these long distance lines. So they were a shared resource. And basically that's what trunking is a shared resource. You have anywhere from 2 channels to 20 channels that are in a trunked site, a specific trunk site, that are shared channels with everybody. So your radio is controlled by a some type of a master site that sends information to your radio that when you want to make a call, it assigns you one of those shared channels. So instead of having to wait to use the radio because someone else is on it, it assigns you to an open resource until you're done. And then it all goes back to kind of idle and waiting for the next person to do it. Or if you can continue your conversation, you may stay on the same resource. It may have not broken down the call, just depending on how length times are set up in the system in the background. But that's what it is. You're sharing resources. So in a large metropolitan area, you have what's called simulcast, where they have 20 channels per site, but all the sites are the same frequency. They're all synced together, and so that you're utilizing 20 frequency pairs or 40, 20 transmits, 20 receives, but you might have multiple sites that share all that, uh, and it's all simulcast. So it's a way of putting a lot of calls in some areas on in a small amount of resources. So it's basically a sharing of resources. So hopefully everybody didn't fall asleep.
I know I didn't, and everybody's heard kind of my version of it, so it's kind of cool to be able to hear your version of the trunking. But yeah, I mean the radios that when I came into the hobby, trunking just was kind of coming about, with at least in Massachusetts. I started off with that Radio Shack analog conventional scanner, and then once the Mass State Police started building their trunk system, I bought the 895, and then I ended up doing the 780 XLT, and then I actually had this next radio in my vehicle. I'm not too sure if you've had this portable radio, Dale, the Uniden Bearcat BC1258 XLT. Do you remember that one?
I have the name sounds familiar, but I haven't had one. When it comes to portables, I had the very first Uniden programmable scanner, which was I think a BC100, and then I had the next version up that was like a BC200. The 100 was a real entry level programmable scanner, and it had batteries on either side of it. And then you went to the next version, had the little battery pack that you could slide off the bottom. I had one of each of those.
Yeah, so the BC246, I actually had two of these. And I used this radio so much that that I wore down the writing on the keypad. And I actually had the one that I used for a portable, and then I actually used this for a period of time in the vehicle. I got one of those, and this was early, those, basically a cell phone type of grip thing, and I mounted this in the vehicle. And this scanner came out around the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, and it had trunk tracking, close call, introduced the dynamic memory system that we know today from Uniden. It was analog still. It had a very good coverage, VHF, UHF, 800, the aviation, amateur bands, alpha tagging, which, now this was my portable that actually had alpha tagging, which I loved, 16 characters, alpha tagged. And yet again, this was a radio that introduced, PC programming, to be able to program this on your computer. Still, being able to do, the basic Motorola type of trunk system, analog, EDAC, and LTR. But I mean, this was a huge hit for me. It was a fairly small scanner, comparable size-wise to the what we know today as the 325P2. So it could fit in your shirt pocket. So it was small and compact. Had two AA batteries, worked fairly well. But yeah, I mean, this was just a great handheld radio.
I had an AOR 1000 for a while, their little handheld scanner for a while, and uh, by that time I had a company radio, so I normally didn't carry a scanner for a long time until I got into the 325 P2. That was that was a huge jump for me. I didn't have a handheld scanner for a long time.
Yeah, and you also have the SDS 100. Is that right for a handheld?
Yeah, I now I actually have three of the 325 P2s and one SDS 100 for handheld scanners. I had a hold of a 396. I think 396T was one of the ones before the previous models before the 325, and I had one of those for a little bit too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so you've gotten some of the really good digital radios that are out there, including the STS 100. So you have three of the 325 P2s. So why three of that particular radio? Do you just like the set the feature sets on that, or?
I acquired the other two through an estate that I'm currently doing, so they were kind of gifted to me. There was some money given to the estate, so but one of them I'm going to gift to my brother-in-law, and probably the other one is going to go to my son. He's been politicking for it. Preston hasn't asked for one yet, but I'm sure that's coming. And if either one of them is listening tonight, I'm sure I'll hear about it later.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great radio, the 325. It's digital. It's able to do, pretty much, all the today's radio stuff, even with the upgrades if you do purchase those with the NXDN, DMR, and then Pro Voice if there's any Pro Voice near you. If you're just joining us tonight, Dale is on the phone. He's joining us for the program tonight. We're talking about some of the classic scanners that I've had in my life. Dale, we're going to talk about yours in a little bit. Let's take a look at another radio that I've had and I've talked about a lot. You probably could guess the radio that I talk about a lot, and I use it for rail fanning. It's the Uniden Bearcat BC1258. It is still available. It was released November of 2013. So it's over 10 years old and it's still being manufactured, which is kind of unusual for Uniden. Usually the shelf life is not that long for a radio. Usually, it usually gets phased out, before 10 years. But this radio is certainly popular for the hobbyists, whether you're into rail fanning or monitoring aviation, maritime. It's a really slick radio, with the alpha tag display, 500 channels, 10 banks. It has a lot of the good features that you would need on an analog conventional radio. If you didn't need trunking, this is certainly a good radio to take a look at. So
And I,
Dale,
I actually don't, I actually don't, I actually don't own one of them yet. I don't know if I'll ever get one or not. I have so many other radios. I know that you've got one, and Mr. Carlson has one. A lot of other folks have one, but I don't have one. I have several of the Big Brother of the 325, the mobile version. I've got one in my company truck, which I'm currently driving. I've got one in this, and some of my cohorts have them too for either their vehicles or on their bench. I'm going to turn my scan off here so you don't hear all the traffic in the background. I just passed by Livingston, Montana, which is the east entrance to Yellowstone National Park. If you've ever been up here, you go into Livingston and go south, into a big canyon, then into Gardner, Montana, then into Mammoth, which is the park headquarters for Yellowstone Park. And this is tourist season up here, so there's lots of folks from other states up here that are coming to the park to visit.
That's for sure. Yeah, I want to go to Yellowstone. I haven't been to Montana. I definitely need to come out and visit. I just want to be able to see it. We do have a question. Randy's asking, is there a book that explains all these modes? For the most part, like my channel, the Scanner Guys here, we try to do shows that explain the various type of modes of the scanner. There's other YouTubers that do it as well. If you do own a scanner and you want an easier to read manual, there's a gentleman that created Mark's scanners, which he's basically taken the manual and kind of put it back into layman's terms. So there's a lot of resources out there. Just got to have to go digging for it. There's not really like a published book that goes through everything that I know of. Is there any? I mean, and then of course, go ahead.
Google can be your friend too, because when you talk about different kinds of modes, you look at the different kinds of trunk systems over the years. You got Motorola Type 1, Type 2, then you go into the P25 stuff for Motorola. You got P25 Phase 1, Phase 2. You have LTR, which was an E.F. Johnson system. There was LTR Multinet. And then when GE still existed, they created a trunking system known as EDAX. And there's EDAX and EDAX Pro Voice. And then there was a company by the name of Maycom that created a trunk system called OpenSky. So you have that kind of trunking system. There's some other trunking systems that are used by businesses, some European type ones. You've got Tetra and some other ones that are used. So there's a boatload of different kinds of just trunking systems. And then on top of that, you have all the different types of modulation you have AM modulation, you have wideband modulation, narrowband, you have DMR, you have NXDN, all kinds of different modulations. So, I mean, a lot of information out there, and Google can be your friend on some of that. I don't know, there's not a lot of places that have a lot of that on it. Radio Reference, I think, would be probably one of the biggest places, but they're definitely, it's a pretty big field when you start talking about trunking systems and modulation types.
That's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there online, but it's not. I would say you're right, Dale. The place where everything's kind of all together is Radio Reference on their wiki section of their website. A lot of that stuff is there, but there's not really a book, that kind of goes through every single one. But there's a ton of information on Radio Reference. A lot of people are commenting about, about the various modes and radios that you've talked about. AOR, good scanner, as good as Uniden for police and fire scanning. Someone mentioned in the audience there. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of, is there another Yes, there's another. I have one more that I kind of have on my list, and I actually own several of these, and it's the Uniden Bearcat BC895 XLT. So this is still a scanner that's being manufactured, and this one came out in 2014. So it's had a long shelf life as well, just like the 125 AT. And the reason why I like this, it kind of came out shortly after the Home Patrol, and the Home Patrol 1 really was pretty basic. And the 536 brought in all the the geeky features that we are looking for. So being able to custom program it, being able to do a lot more with it, and it was in a traditional type of scanner form factor, where it was a true base mobile scanner, where the Home Patrol 1 and 2, for that matter, is a hybrid in between, a base mobile and a handheld. It kind of is in between the two. Unfortunately, I don't have any detail of. One of our audience members, Dale, is asking about the remote head that Scanner Master is manufacturing. So he's asking if it'll ever materialize. That both Dale and I do not know the answer to that at this point. From what I've been told, communicating with Scanner Master, that they are working on it. I don't know when it'll be coming out. I know they have a new version of it. They basically had version 1 for a prototype, and then they had version 2, and I'm guessing there'll probably be a version 3 once they figure out everything that they want.
I know that our friend Rich Carlson did some videos on it, and I think Rich Barnett did some videos on it in the early version of it. But I think that, like you said, that there's been maybe I know there's been some revisions to it that you and I have both been told about. But I think the issues going on with electronics right now, with what's going on with tariffs and electronics and stuff that happened from the pandemic, that still some agencies and some electronics companies are still trying to pick up the pieces from, I think are going to delay it. It would be lovely when it comes out. If it does, I think I give it a higher chance of coming out than I ever do those that remember me talking about the AOR 5400, I think it was, which was the aircraft receiver that had 4 different receivers in it, and that AOR was going to come out, and then they kind of introduced it just before the pandemic, and then they killed it. I'm hoping that they bring it back alive, but I'm not holding my breath. But I think the remote head probably has a better chance of seeing the light of day.
That's for sure. I think you're absolutely right. The biggest concern that I've gotten from a lot of viewers is the price tag of this remote head, and that's a lot of people asking me. And of course, I don't know. I mean, I just hope that it's affordable. It doesn't cost as much as a scanner. Hopefully, it is affordable, but I'm not too sure what that is. I did ask that question, and basically, I didn't get an answer. How much it'll be once it's all said and done. But hopefully, I know that the old RH96 was, I think it was about $200 when it came out, and then it had a price tag of $169.95 was probably the lowest that I saw it. If memory serves me correctly, that was the price range, probably in between 200 and that 169 price. But yeah, I'm hoping that we do see it eventually, because I can see, looking at new vehicles, Dale, you know that the real estate is not, unless you're in a vehicle like you are in the company vehicle, where it has the real estate for radios, but most people don't have that convenience, so it's kind of hard to put radios in there. The remote head would be super handy because it's small and compact, and then you can take the unit and put it underneath a seat.
And I do that. There's some folks that know what I do for a living, and we do that with some of our undercover vehicles and our executive protection vehicles. We use the remote mount. I call it a James Bond microphone because everything's in the microphone, but it's the one that we use is the Motorola O3 microphone with the radio that's attached to it, whether it's an XTL platform or an Apex platform. The microphone it has grown a little bit from its early days back in the Centaur and Spectre days, but that makes it really nice in a small compact vehicle. Trying to put a underdash radio in a smaller compact vehicle is real fun. Somebody's going to be banging their knees on it for sure.
That's for sure.
The other comment I was going to make about the RH96 if you find them now on eBay, I've kind of been looking for one. I don't know why, just I am. The prices on, if you find a new one, they're in the $200 to $300 range. You know, trying to use it there for, but the other one that had a remote head too was the one that Scanner Master created for the 780 XLT. That I don't know how the sales of that was, but I know that I saw one not too long ago on eBay that was for sale, and I just about bought it just so I could say I had one.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have an RH96. I mean, and I loved it. I used that in the vehicle quite a bit. I had I had a Jeep Liberty at one point. I used something like that there. And then, of course, I've used it, it's just awesome just being able to have that remote head, being able to do that. Dale, we got a comment here about the BCD 396 radios, like the 436 and 536. Will there ever be a version 2 that has Bluetooth? They would have to, Uniden would have to basically decide if they want to manufacture a new radio that has that. But yeah, we haven't seen on any of the radios as of right now the Bluetooth feature included in it on the Uniden or on the Whistler side as of this point. And I know that's one of the things that a lot of people have asked about is basically having the Bluetooth feature included with the scanner. So hopefully at some point we'll be able to see that. Looks like Dale just dropped off. He'll call me back as soon as he's back on. So the thing is that's on the wish list for many scanner enthusiasts, is being able to have the Bluetooth on there. The GRE PSR 500, Scott says, is a great working scanner. It is indeed. I always thought of the programming on the GRE PSR 500 and 600. You're almost like filling out a questionnaire, or it's a menu that drives down. And the biggest thing, if you're manually programming that, make sure you always affiliate a channel or talk group to a scanless. If you don't, you'll have a heap error, because that channel will basically, or talk group, be floating in the scanner. So you need to assign it to that. But yeah, there is certainly, the PSR 500 and 600, which is now made by a Whistler as well. I can't remember what their thing is. Yes, Whistler is still in business. They're actually were bought out by another company. Whistler doesn't have Randy. Whistler doesn't have Bluetooth on any of their radios, such as the TX1, TX2, or any of the WS 1065 or the other models. It doesn't have any of the Bluetooth on there. But Whistler is still in business. They were actually bought out by a company here in Cincinnati, and I was able to meet some of those people at the Dayton Hamvention. I was able to talk to them over the phone, talk to them in person. I almost said over the phone. I'm thinking of Dale on the phone. But yeah, they're going to start working on their scanner product line. I'm not too sure where they're at with all of that, but hopefully we'll be able to see something from them soon regarding that. Joe P. mentions he has still 2 RH96s, which is awesome to hear. The RH96, Dale and I were just talking about that moments ago. A great remote head, and that's what a lot of people are now wanting. I think the remote head, when it first came out through Uniden, there's on the Pro 197, Randy, there's no Bluetooth on there. There's not on the Radio Shack scanners as well, unless they came out with something new, or there's a dongle on it. Other than that, basically Uniden GRE Whistler radios do not have the remote head on there. So it looks like Dale is back on the call. Dale, I was just talking about our viewers were asking about Whistler and and GRE and Uniden radios if they had Bluetooth. As far as I know, none of the commercial radios have that.
No, the only radio I'm aware of that does anything is the 536 that has the Wi-Fi. Other than that, I'm not aware of any radio that does Bluetooth.
Yeah, there's no, as of right now. So hopefully we'll be able to see Bluetooth in the near future. Speaking of Bluetooth, I know a lot of departments use the that lapel mic, which is Bluetooth at roller manufacturers. How does your department have any of those, and how does it work? Is it any good?
We have a handful of them, and we've tested some other ones. There's another one called Extender. Um, they work all right. I'm not a huge fan of them. Um, I like we also use a something called an extender that attaches your car radio to another radio that transmits on a different band to your portable. We happen to use it on UHF to the portables. We don't have a lot of them, but I like that better because it gives you much better range. What we found with some of the Wi-Fi mics are if the range is really limited depending on if you're walking into a real metal building, or if you walk up to a semi up to the front to the cab from the back. Sometimes the Wi-Fi ones don't give you the connectivity. Even with the extender one, the extender brand one gives you an external microphone or an external antenna, which we mounted on the roof of the car. We They work okay, but I'm not a huge fan of them.
Yeah, Chris is mentioning on Facebook he's seeing an increasing amount of radios, VHF and UHF, and ham radio that are incorporating the Bluetooth. So on the two-way radio side of things, it looks like we're definitely seeing some of that Bluetooth being used, but on the scanner side of things, they really haven't embraced it that much. Dale, since you're back, I do have the photograph of the 3 radios that you sent me via text. So do you want to tell us about each of these radios?
So I grew, I'm a cop's kid. I grew up with a father who was in the sheriff's department, worked his way up to sheriff, and I was, of course, when I was little, I was always intrigued by the radio that was in our personal car. Back then, they didn't have company cars; they had their personal cars, and it had a low band Motorola radio in it. Started out as a 2-channel, then went to a 4-channel. But one day, my father brought home a E.F. Johnson Duo scanner, and I got to play with that for a while. And it was set up for VHF and UHF, and that's what started it for me. Then later on, I acquired a Tenelec MS1 programmable scanner, and before that one, I got a Pace 308. The Pathcom 308 was the company that built it out of California. The 308 was a low band, high band, and UHF scanner. By changing the crystals in it, obviously the F Johnson Duo Scan was a crystal scanner, and so was the Pace. They were only 8 channels. The Tenelec was 16 channels, which I still have, by the way. I still have that Tenelec. But that was my introduction to scanning in the scanning world. And the Pace I had in 2 different towns in Montana and a town in Wyoming. So of course you had to go find the local Radio Shack and get crystals for them. And it was a wonderful scanner. I know some folks that have bought some off eBay, and on Facebook I've talked with some of them on Faceplant, and I've kicked around the idea of buying one off YouTube or off eBay, and I haven't yet. But that was a really nice old scanner, and we tweaked on it. Some folks that I knew at the time that were a tad older than me, that had the equipment, a service monitor to tune on it. We actually tuned on it a little bit, made it a little bit more sensitive than it was originally. But That radio had low band crystals in it, high band crystals, and UHF, and it was just an old workhorse of a scanner. So those were my three first scanners that I ever had in my 66 years on this planet.
Wow. Which radio out of all the scanners that you've had would you say is your all-time favorite?
Oh, that's hard to say. I either that pace scanner was my favorite, or I also had a Uniden Bearcat 250. And I say it's going to be a toss up between that pace 308 or the 250. I had a 250. I actually had two of them for a long, long time, and that 250 was a wonderful old scanner.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the same thing. Some of the, a lot of people probably would think that we would say the SDS 100 or, I mean, for me, I mean, it's crazy. Some of my favorite scanners are kind of the basic ones. That I kind of got introduced to the hobby, or I use for my other hobby, which is chasing trains. For rail fanning. So it's, I mean, I love that BC246T. It just was an awesome radio. I mean, I used it so much that that I wore out the keypad, and it's just an awesome radio.
And
Uh,
with all the traveling I do, I normally take my my SDS 100 and my 325 with me, along with a company radio. I'm about to go to Baltimore on Sunday for a law enforcement conference all next week, and those three radios will go with me. My 100 has the Pro Voice option in it for my road trips to either San Antonio when they were Pro Voice, or Biloxi, Mississippi, that my wife loves. Harrison County in Biloxi, Mississippi, or Harrison County down there, is still running Pro Voice, EDAX Pro Voice.
Yeah, Chris mentions in the chat that he still has a few of the Bearcat 250s. So a lot of our audience members tonight are reminiscing about some of those radios that are out there.
The two
No-
the 250 had some chips in it that were specially made for it that are hard to find, and I know there was a couple places that would repair them. You could get them repaired for a while, but I think that we're far enough out now that if you bought 10 of them, you could maybe make Frankenstein one out of the 10 of them. But I know there was they had power supply issues, and then there was a chip in them that was specifically designed for that scanner that you can't find anymore. It's unobtainable, or however they say that.
yeah, there's also somebody else mentioned about the Uniden Bearcat 1000. Which was a digital radio. I believe I'm not too sure if I've ever had that one. I think that was one of the digital radios one of the first digital radios, I believe. I think, if I remember correctly, and I think it had the that slot that you had to buy the card for it, if I remember correctly.
And that I don't remember that, unless that was an early programmable one.
Let me just see. I'm just trying to see.
I
DX.
know there was the Regency, the Whammo, the 101 that had the combs for it. You had
Oh,
an SBE Optiscan that had the card you plugged into it that uses optical for the programming of it. And my father actually had one of those in his county sheriff car when they actually started doing those. My father had one in his car that I programmed for him. And the problem with those were, if you lived in an area that got really hot and it was in your car, those cards that you plugged in, the little stickies that were on there that covered up the little windows that the light shined through, and they would slide around in there, and it would get hot in there, and the cards were really hard to. The cards would reprogram themselves from the heat, from the little stickies that were on there sliding around in there.
yeah. I think the viewer was referring to maybe the BC 250D, because it had 1,000 channels. I think
Oh,
that
okay.
viewer may have been referring to that. I was trying to do a Google search because I was like, I'm not familiar with that one, and then it did actually come up with the BC250D because it has 1,000 channels. Jim is asking me any idea where Joe Bearcat is these days. I'm not too sure if he's not able to join the broadcast on the fourth Wednesday of the month. Maybe he has something that conflicts with his schedule for him to join, on the broadcast. As many of you may know, that the broadcast is only once a month, so it's on the fourth Wednesday of every month, and then the Train Aficionado Live is the second Wednesday of each month. Another viewer is mentioning his radio is the BCD996P2, which is the brother-sister model, Dale, of your 325 P2 that you bring with you.
And I have one of those in the vehicle I'm currently driving. I've got one. I have it turned down right now. I normally, when I drive around for work around the state of Montana, I've programmed into it all the active railroad channels in Montana. That's one zone, so I scan all of them. There's a lot of doubled up channels, but I also have it programmed with all of the aircraft channels that are utilized around all the different. I have Salt Lake Center in it. I have Denver Center in it. I have Manitoba Center. I have Minneapolis Center, Salt Lake Center. Because as I drive around Montana, I can hear airplanes talking to those various centers. I hear mostly Salt Lake Center. When I get on the western edge of the state, I can hear a little bit of ground to air traffic from Seattle Center. But I actually have I think 6 of those radios. Most of them are at my house.
Oh, wow. Question for you, which I never asked. Does Montana have an air wing, for the State Police or Highway Patrol there?
We do. We have a fixed wing and a helicopter, of which I am currently waiting on new radios for both of them from a Canadian company called Technosonics that takes they actually use Motorola for the radio. So they take a Motorola radio and interface it into a box that can be placed in an airplane, and it has FAA rating. It's very expensive. And both of our fixed wing and helicopter currently have an older version of a Technosonics radio in them.
I see. That's cool. Yeah, because I know Massachusetts, and many other states, have an air wing division. I was just wondering if Montana also did, and it sounds like certainly it does. Let me just see.
We're big enough. It would be nice. We're big enough. It would be nice to have several helicopters. We have one. We have one Bell 206, and our fixed wing is a single engine. And I couldn't tell you what brand it is. I can't remember, but it's a nice. I've flown in it. It's a single engine, seats 4 for dinner, and they fly it around the state. And the helicopter, the helicopter gets used for. We use it. The radio shops use it for going to radio sites. They use it for looking for bad people or rescuing people. The fixed wing gets used for speeding. A lot of states use them for speeders on interstates because you don't know it's there until you get stopped.
Oh yeah, I've heard that a time or two. Them communicating, to the various aircraft. The aircraft communicating to the units on the ground. So if you're just joining us tonight, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, we're broadcasting on both tonight. We're talking about your favorite classic police scanners. I covered mine. Dale covered some of his. I just want to give you a couple of things to keep in mind. I'm redoing the merch store, so there'll be a brand new merch store coming soon to the scannerguyshow.com. So I recommend waiting until we have our store up, a brand new store up. But you can order your scanner-related things from Scanner Master. And there's an affiliate link on the website. Excuse me, not on the website, but in each one of the YouTube shows in the description. We also recommend that you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well. That's Facebook, Instagram, X, and of course on YouTube. So let me just back up here. Hold on one second. Yeah, just trying to do a couple things at once here. So Dale, is uh, are you retiring this year? Is that what's happening? Or are you still going?
I had talked about retiring the end of this year. I still may do that. I don't know yet. I'm in negotiations with my wife about that. Um, it it I don't know yet. I still like going to work every day. I haven't had 3 bad days in a row, so I tell everybody 3 bad days in a row and I'm out of here. I do have enough years I could retire. Um, I just don't know yet. So,
I mean,
as a matter of fact, today I was at a retirement get together for one of my cohorts, a gentleman I've known for over 35 years that is retiring after doing radio stuff for 45 years. Now,
wow.
he's doing it longer than me. Before I went to work in public safety, I worked in television, broadcast television as an engineer, both in Montana and Wyoming. So I have about 18 years of that. So I haven't been doing public safety radio stuff for that long, but I have been playing with scanners for that because at the various TV stations I worked at, I usually set up in the newsroom the scanners that they had in the newsrooms for the various towns that I lived in for those newsrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it certainly. I sounds like like if I was to be able to do a really cool job, I feel like your job's pretty cool. Being able to kind of play with the various tools that like that radios and such, and it's kind of communication is a lot of fun, especially when it comes to two-way radio communication, and some of the things that you've shared with me, with going out to the various repeater sites, that are quite remote, which has got to be super interesting, to have to go out to those sites where you actually have to use various modes of transportation to get there.
Over the years, I've snowmobiled into sites. I've flown into sites. We have Massachusetts has the same snowcat we do. Theirs is blue though. Ours is still red. We have a piston bully Scout made by a company called Piston Bully that makes snow groomers. I tell everybody it seats five for dinner. It does seat five people, two in front, three in back. But we do have a snowcat to get to sites. So we've done that. We have ATVs that we can put tires on or treads on, depending on what time of the year it is, and to get to radio sites. So we've got several sites that are over 11,000 feet. I think there's a couple other states that have higher ones than we do, but not much. But it's nice this time of year that you can get to all the sites for the most part. It's pretty nice. In the wintertime, we have sites that you're either going to snowmobile, snowcat, or fly into. Some of them, there's a couple that we share the site with FAA, and so the roads actually plowed. The FAA plows the roads into some of their sites, and so we're able to drive to them. You're driving in a tunnel, a snow tunnel, kind of where you got snow walls on either side of you. It's kind of interesting, but it is a good job. There's not a lot of people that do it. So anybody listening, if you feel that you want to do it and you have an electronics background, follow it, go into it, because it's finding people that have an RF background or an interest in electronics is really, really, and it's across the nation. It's the same way in television too and broadcast, but in public safety, finding people that want to do it is really getting hard to find.
Yeah, so it sounds like just one of those trades where there's not a lot of people that one take interest in it, and so it's kind of hard to. I'm sure it's kind of hard to find people.
Oh yeah, in my group that I oversee, we not only do the communications, the backbone of the radio system. There's microwave hops, digital microwave involved. I also oversee the our upfitting shops. We have 4 shops that upfit all of our cars and some other cars for some other agencies. But even with that, it's hard to find somebody to start off there and work their way up the food chain, or have the RF background to come in and just do the radio side. And my counterparts in other states are having the same kind of issues.
Yeah, so definitely, if you're definitely looking, um, for something, and you're quite knowledgeable in those fields, there's certainly some jobs to be had out there. Uh, let's see. Jim just commented he used to have, he is currently using a BC300 XLT in his car for rail and air. He's using that each day, and then he's got. It's actually really good, and it kind of beats the BC1258 for reception. So that's quite interesting. I'm not familiar with the BC3000 XLT. I've never owned one of those.
I know of it. I've seen it before, but I've never ever played with one. And I to be honest with you, I can't remember if it's the big box or the little under dash box.
Yeah, let me just see. I'll do a quick little Google search here and take a look at that before we wrap up tonight's programs. So it's the BC3000.
Oh, here's a BNSF westbound freight train, a little one. It's got 2 power on the front and about a dozen cars behind it. They must be really heavy cars. They got a lot of power in front for half a dozen cars.
Yeah, so I was able to look it up. That 3000 XLT is a 400 channel scanner handheld. So, and it had the nickel cad battery pack. It almost looks, it's definitely, it's a full size portable radio. Um, yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
it's the big body radio.
yep, it's a big body portable radio. Yep. So, and he says it kind of beats out the 125 AT for sensitivity. So, which is pretty interesting. A lot of times those sometimes the older radios can be a lot more sensitive.
Yeah, yeah, and I haven't played. I know some folks are getting into the SDS dongles, um, and I haven't played with any of those yet. I know that when you start talking about some of the other modulation trunking types, the AOR radios do some of that, and then some of the dongles that you can get will do the tetras and some of that stuff.
That's super cool. I haven't done anything with that either, so I'm very curious. How all of that works within the hobby. I know there's a lot of people experimenting with various things out there. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour. Any other questions before we wrap it up this evening? Thank you so much to everybody joining us on Facebook and on YouTube tonight. One of our audience is mentioning, what is the tallest tower you've ever worked on, Dale?
The tallest tower that I've worked on is about 700 feet. Now, I haven't climbed all the way to the top of that. The highest I've been is 3. I didn't climb up the 700-foot one because it was a broadcast tower, an FM radio station broadcast tower over on the eastern part of the state. And because it was privately owned, we had to have a certified company climb it that would climb it. We had an antenna on it that was at about the 600-foot level. And we actually took it down off that tower and moved it to a different tower that was a little bit higher and a little bit shorter.
So you climbed the tower. What was that like?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Ask that question again.
So you said you climbed up the tower 300 feet. What was that like?
It's just like climbing up a 300-foot ladder. I was a lot younger. I didn't huff and puff as much, but you do your safe. You climb safely and keep 2 points attached at all times, and you climb. At that time, they didn't have a safety climb on it, so you free climbed up the side of it, the outside of it, and it was just like climbing up an angled ladder as you climbed up it. You just kind of worked your way up it slowly, and if you had to take a short break, you tied off and and took your little break and went to the top. So It wasn't bad. Like I said, I was probably 20 years younger. So we had antennas at the top. I think we changed the beacon light on the top too on that tower, but it was an older tower, but it was a nice climb. It was a guide tower. It wasn't a self-supporting tower.
Wow. I mean, so clearly you don't have a fear of heights.
I no, I don't.
Thank goodness for that.
But
Go ahead.
on the other hand, too, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to push it. So, but no, I'm not afraid of heights.
Yeah, because of I think I would be a little leery being 300 feet off the ground. But you said that you have all the equipment to be able to kind of hold you there in case anything would happen. Not that you would want anything to happen. But yeah, that's a crazy 300 feet up, and that I'm sure it takes you a little bit to get up there. You said you had to kind of take breaks, at certain points.
Well, you're all harnessed up and you're carrying some equipment, so you climb up a ways and because I don't do it every day, so you climb up a ways, and if you get a little winded, you just stop for a minute or two, and then you continue to climb up, and you do it safely, and like I said, you keep yourself connected at two different points. You're either tying yourself off, or you're doing with a climbing hook, or if you've got the newer towers have a tether on them that you can tether yourself to, so that you're safely attached most of the time or all the time.
Gotcha. It looks like Brandon just asked a. Another. Let me just get this question. One audience member is asking, Dale, have you ever put up a tower?
Yeah, I have. I've actually put up several towers that we've done, and I've also worked with contractors. That all of our current big towers have been done by a contractor, usually the tower company. But yes, I have put up several towers, some ham towers and some towers for the company. But all of our current big stuff, which is either a Roan tower or a Sabre, were usually done by a tower company for insurance and liability issues.
And usually, when like a larger tower like that, how quickly can that go up? What would be the timeline once everything's ordered and they have all the materials?
The biggest thing is doing the tower base. The tower base takes the longest, and once it's done, a tower can go up in a week, the better part of a week, if everything's there, and your weather plays nice with you. Usually, you use a crane to put some of it up. Some of it you might use a gin pole, but most of our self-supporting towers are under 200 feet, so mostly used the crane to put them up. So they go up pretty quick. You can actually pre-build the sections and then just lift them with the crane. If it's a guide tower, you're usually using a gin pole to hang it up, and we don't have a lot of those towers that we utilize. Most of the stuff that we have is a self-supporting tower.
That's super cool. Another person asking where Joe Bearcat is. I don't know. I don't know the whereabouts of Joe Bearcat, at least tonight. And then Brandon's asking about what kind of antenna would you use if you were to mount it on a bicycle? That I guess that would depend on what real estate you have on a bicycle. I know that there's an NMO mount that's it'll wrap on a pole or like a mirror mount. I'm not too sure if you'll be able to configure something of that with an NMO with that type of bracket mount. That's a possibility, but I'm not really sure on that question. I mean, for the most part, you probably will be using a portable scanner, so maybe just improving upon the stock antenna that comes with that portable scanner, and then you probably would do some sort of mounting bracket for that handheld scanner, so you could put on handlebars, I guess.
The first thing that jumps into my mind with handlebars is it's all fun and games till the antenna pokes you in the eye. If I were to do it on a bike, I would look at like a motorcycle mount or something on the back of the bike. I wouldn't put it on the front. If you could do that, I mean, that would be the last case scenario to put it on the handlebars.
Yeah, you don't want to knock out an eye, that's for sure. I think that wraps it up for the questions this evening. Anything else that, final thoughts, Dale, before we wrap it up? Oops. Looks like you're gone. You're going through another dead spot.
I don't think it's just thanks for having me on. You're right on. Ready to be on again.
Going a little digital on us, Dale. I'm not too sure what you said there.
It's my cell coverage is going away. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm so happy. Anytime that you want to be on, by all means, I'm happy to have you on. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you to everybody that's watching in the audience, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it after it posts on the YouTube channel. We appreciate every one of you. We'll catch you next month for another episode of the Scanner Guys. Maybe Dale will join me on that show as well. I'm not too sure what we'll cover for a topic, and then of course, Train Aficionado Live. We'll be back in August on the second Wednesday of the month, and then the Scanner Guys will be on the fourth Wednesday of the month. Thank you to everybody watching. Thank you so much, Dale, for being a part of the show as always. Well, I hope you have a great night. We'll catch you all again next time right here on the channel.